Thank you very much. Welcome. We are Antonio Chain and myself, Daniel Mendez, on behalf of our colleagues in this research team and the organizations behind it. We're going to introduce a project based on the study of the landscape. We understand the landscape as the continuous interaction of the territory and the people populating it. The landscape can change, motivated by the action of the humans that we have been discussing in the previous sessions yesterday deeply, also by natural causes, and one can affect the other and the other again come back to it. The landscape can also create identity. That's the idea that we want to develop during this session. Indeed, for example, we selected this domain in that instead of being focused or targeted to the sunrise, it's targeted to this spectacular formation that could evoke some figures, some even human faces. So it's part of the emblematic identity. It provokes feelings, and that's important at this point. The landscape provokes feelings across the time. Indeed, the landscape is the common link for societies all along a big period. In our case, we are going to talk about the archaeological site that a priori was occupied during 1,000 years. With many changes, of course, but that was the common link. Indeed, you see on a picture, that's the key location of our study in this year, and the final construction in this place that we're going to talk about, and that starts in the 6th century before Christ, is a hermitage, is a church on top of it. So we continue inhabiting this place. So the idea is, let's analyze how the human beings and the animal species, the plant species, the introduction of new animals, how it moves the ecosystem, also the introduction of new plants, how all these elements interact and can modify. Originally, our scope was from First Iron Ages to Romanization, but the place we selected has been kind with us, and now the scope is even bigger for the same place. First, let's locate our place. We are focusing in a territory in Soria, what in the early ages was the source of the Celtiberian region. And we were searching for a place inhabited or populated for a long period, expecting to be one of the first permanent places where humans populate this zone before we didn't have any continuous location, we didn't have continuous towns, and finishing with the Roman conquest. So we found an interesting place that contains 3 archaeological sites that will cover those 1,000 years. First, the hill of San Cristobal, which is a hill fort dated around the 6th century before Christ. Then there is a second population, there is a movement of that population to 2 kilometers far away, not very far away. There is even a visual line from the 3 archaeological sites we are going to talk about. It's a different society, it belongs to 3rd to 1st centuries before Christ. And finally, the Romanization. They don't move very far away, they keep on having continuous points of view, they see each other even when they don't populate those places. We selected also this place because the Roman villa has been musealized, and among the many beautiful mosaics there was an anagram that could only be interpreted when in the nearby appeared this altar that could decode the name included here. In that altar, it was referring to the Enrico. That name is not Roman, it's of Celtic root, and it's an altar of the Titus Enrico dedicated to the god Eburo. With this Enrico name, the rest of the mosaics, the later mosaics, separated a long time from the Celtiberian age, could be decoded. So that altar was dedicated to a Celtic god. That was an interesting point. So we were noticing persistence of the Celtiberian namings and even of the Celtic gods long time after the conquest. Even during a dark period in that there is no trace of the Celtiberian namings after the conquest. There is a long time in that this doesn't happen. So it's a long break. Why this happens after, and why there is this continuity? So is it the same human group? Is there a continuous bloodline, or is there an interruption? Why do they change the locations? It's clear that they are populating this area, but during those thousand years, they are moving from one place to another. And what are the factors influencing that change? Well, the big thing is that we could not answer these kind of questions even 20 years ago. We are living what is called the second scientific revolution. And now, thanks to the DNA analysis, the isotopes, and many other contributions of certain disciplines, we can create new questions, because otherwise we will be doing the same questions and obtaining the same answers. So we have done alliances with specialists from all these disciplines to try to get more answers on this space in that so many things happen. On the San Cristobal Hill, there is a model of population in the entrance of a river canyon. Castilterreño, that is a hill controlling a wild space, it's a completely different settlement. And finally, the Roman villa of La Dehesa. The first campaign has been last year, and the prospection, searching for mostly ceramic evidences, created some heat maps. First two places resulted into negative bits, and the third one succeeded. And we could verify that this place was a place of memory. And even when the population is no longer living there, it still keeps a function during centuries. The first element that we still need to get the datings point in the direction of the late Bronze Age. For sure, we have elements of the first Iron Age. We have elements during the Romanization, and even some burials during the Independent Emirate. And finally, as you can see in the first picture, we have a hermitage, an active hermitage in direct connection with the current town nearby. We found, as I mentioned, the dead bodies, some burials, and finally, we will talk about this in the end. The population in that place still has some rituals, even today, in that all inhabitants of that place have to memorize some sounds, some songs dedicated to the bodies found on that place that centuries before even was an Iron Age location. Well, this is the stratigraphy of the pit number 3, resulting in an overlap of different structures. The importance. This is probably the first stable continuous settlement in the history of this territory in Soria. Before, everything was temporary occupation. The chronology is helping us with this. We are living the Iron Age. It's an improvement in the technology and the abilities to build and modify the landscape. and also there is a climate improvement that helps to do that. The characteristic of this site, as we can see in the upper picture, still full of vegetation that can be more or less seen, the big walls. Those walls are an intentional message of settling. We are staying here forever. It's not like in the previous stage. We want to be seen, we want to have a delimitation of the territory. It needs a big collaboration to create those monumental constructions. At this point, the subsistence economy still is based on the livestock harvesting and hunting. We can see evidences of the livestock in the shearing scissors. The structures that we have documented are in the lower levels an oval hut. So it's like the temporary first trial of occupying this place. Mud structures, temporary, but when some group, we have to see if it is the same group or if there are connections. At some point there is a group that wants to populate definitely this place, and then is when they build the stone square house. We can see the different levels in here, and we get even some materials that point into earlier ages, and they have been reused, maybe as amulets. So it gives us long chronology. About the findings in this place, we have three main occupations and three main levels. We could document home heat. The ashes that we found here were dated in the 6th, 5th century before Christ. So that gives us the occupation of that square stone building. The occupation, the first or part of the moment in that this population is decided to occupy this place. We still have to go under and get results of the mud construction. So that's the home heat we found. We found some other elements, probably related to the construction, and we still have different inputs of this. We found even things that should not be there, like this Iberian ceramic. So yeah, many surprises. But the accumulation of these elements is not complete, so it gives us the idea of an intentional destruction, an abandonment, a change of location. So why? Looks like we have a change in the way that these societies exploit the terrain and create their expansion and how these societies are growing. And they move to that second settlement that we mentioned before. The physiognomy of this construction is completely different, and we could talk about it. This is opening a big story that we expect to talk about very soon. So let's go back to the first location. We find a recycled inscription, a funerary inscription dedicated to Valeria Julia and Valeria Ada, that is recycled in the church, the heritage that we saw on top. So this gives us the key that in this location there were Roman burials, there was a Roman necropolis. The documenters of the like Juan de Locarret talk about this in their references. We also found a coin that gives us a chronology of occupation of the 350 Anno Domini, and we find bodies directly breaking the structures of the Iron Age we find burials that the carbon 14th dated on the emirate, on an independent emirate. It's not, these bodies are not in Muslim ritual, so we assume they are still of Christian or at least not Muslim beliefs, even in this time. The church construction is not documented. We don't have a direct reference, but looks like it could be around the 15th century. And there are references to the bodies that were found. Okay. So, in the end, what are we talking about? The memory of the territory, the landscape, and its people, an intention to populate it, and a link among all these generations occupying the same place with different cultures, different religions, different ways to live. Even on the village, there are these sounds that everyone memorizes, which tells the story of the miraculous findings of the four martyrs in the place, and it's a direct connection with the necropolis that there is on this Iron Age place. Obviously, the people are not from Iron Age, are later, but it's interesting that hundreds of years after, that was a recurrent place to do things. It's a magic or it's identity place. So, conclusions of the study. First, ancestor worship. The ancestors are referred, or it's the place where the founders of these habitats lived. In the altars, we can see the validation of authority, the reference of the family name, and a very ancient name occupying that place. It's a translation of identity and ideology. With this, we can understand how ancient societies constructed and maintained their identity in time and landscape. In our project, the Hill of San Cristobal site plays a physical role as a repository of cultural memory, reflecting the connection between past and present. Allows us to study cultural genealogies that involve the study of relationships between different groups and generations over time, not only in a biological component that we expect to get a DNA analysis not only of the people but also of the animal species, but also including the transmission of traditions, beliefs, and cultural practices. The manipulation of the past and the construction of cultural memory contribute to the definition of the cultural identities of human groups up to the present in order to strengthen social coexistence, establish links between the communities, and legitimize the power structure throughout history in this territory. So, multiple landscape resulting from the interaction of human groups in the study area during more than 2,600 years, from the livestock-based economy to the Roman agriculture society, abandonments, Middle Age reoccupations, etc. So this place, even not being populated by the people, was a reference for the people of that zone. It was the connection, and it, at some point, even as a necropolis or as any kind of ritual reference, it was still in use.
Hace casi 3.000 años, el territorio de Soria, como la mayor parte del sistema ibérico, era tan duro en invierno que no tenía población estable. Pero se produjo una revolución tecnológica que lo cambió todo, la primera edad del hierro. El proyecto Orígenes ha elegido 3 yacimientos arqueológicos del territorio controlado por Numancia durante la segunda edad del hierro. Un poblado fortificado de la primera edad del hierro, el castro de Cuevas de Soria. Otro castro de la segunda edad del hierro nizana, de la misma cronología que la ciudad de Numancia. Y la villa romana de la Dehesa, en Cuevas de Soria. Los 3, equidistantes 2 kilómetros entre sí y que abarcan casi 1000 años de ocupación de este territorio. ¿Tienen los romanos que vivían en la villa de la Dehesa parentesco con los primeros pobladores? ¿O sus animales? ¿Qué tipos de familias, sociedades y economías forman en estos periodos? El proyecto transdisciplinar Orígenes, liderado por arqueólogos sorianos, con la colaboración de la Diputación de Soria, la Junta de Castilla y León, el Colegio Nuestra Señora del Pilar de Soria, Universidad Francisco de Vitoria de Madrid y la productora Relives, acaba de comenzar. En su primera campaña se han localizado los restos de una cabaña ovalada de muros de barro a la que se superpone una gran casa cuadrangular de muros de piedra, ambas construcciones de la primera edad del hierro. La última fase de ocupación se documenta en época tardorromana, con la presencia de un enterramiento doble que rompe las estructuras anteriores, datado por una moneda de mediados del siglo IV después de Cristo. Un proyecto pionero en genética de los celtíberos a lo largo de los 1000 años desde los primeros pobladores, Numancia y hasta el fin de la romanización.